We've been talking about the absurdity of the alliance and friendship between the United States and Saudi Arabia for really as long as I can remember. Our friend Kyle Kolinsky over at Secular Talk is also talking about it. Here is a specific story about Saudi Arabia we didn't cover, but he is all over. Take a look.
French President Francois Hollande awarded his country's highest honor to the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. So Ben Norton of Salon reports here. Prince Mohammed bin Naif received France's Legion of Honor for his great efforts in the region and the world in countering extremism and fighting terrorism. Oh, good googly moogly. As he rightly points out in the article here, satire is dead. When you give an award to a Saudi prince for fighting terrorism, what the fuck? They say this is fascinating considering the EU has quietly admitted that Saudi Arabia is one of the world's leading sponsors of Islamic extremism. A 2013 European Parliament report states Saudi Arabia has been a major source of financing to rebel and terrorist organizations since the 1970s. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and Kuwait do too little to stop rich and conservative donors from financing terrorist organizations through charitable and religious institutions. Now, the overall number is mind-blowing. Listen to this. The Saudi regime itself has spent more than $100 billion in the past 3 decades exporting its fundamentalist form of Sunni Islam known as Wahhabism through the world, funding schools, mosques, and charities in poor Muslim-majority countries. All right, so think about that. What they do is they go to, poverty-stricken areas, and they offer them a way out. Hey, here's a school. Hey, here's a mosque. Hey, here's some money. Hey, here's some food. And what you do is that's the way you get people on your side, and then you hook them in, and you indoctrinate them with a vicious and vile form of Islam. Wahhabi Islam, Salafi Islam. This is why commentators have rightly pointed out, to say Saudi Arabia is an ISIS that made it is just true. I mean, this is a country that beheads people for sorcery and witchcraft. They declared that all atheists are terrorists. I mean, this is a terror state through and through. And in France, they're like, here's an award for fighting terrorism. They're doing terrorism! Not only all the stuff I already mentioned, but then when you look at Yemen, where they're bombing civilians, over 50% of the people they're killing with cluster bombs, which are illegal under international law, are civilians. They're attacking schools, they're attacking hospitals, quite literally a school for the blind. They don't care about civilian casualties. That's the point sometimes, is to get civilian casualties. They are terrorists. They are. Just because you're their ally, you want to say that doesn't count? No, but it does count. That's the thing, it does count. And remember, Saudi Arabia leads the UN Human Rights Panel. So they lead the UN Human Rights Panel, even though they declared all atheists are terrorists. They behead people for sorcery, witchcraft, and a trillion other things that are not crimes. They're killing civilians in Yemen, perhaps on purpose. They've exported jihadism throughout the world. They funded it. They were some of the key players involved in the 9/11 attacks, but they fight terrorism. Why? Because, hey, come on. They give us cheap oil, so, you know what I'm saying? Keep that other stuff on the low, and we'll pretend like they're fighting for human rights, even though everything they stand for is the opposite of that. This is pathetic, and it shows you, it proves that in the West, business relationships override everything else. If we're in it together for the money, well, then I'll overlook. You can do anything you want, and I'll spin it as you're a crusader for human rights, even if you stand for the exact opposite.
Kyle is spot on here. I don't understand why we don't regularly hear more very, very serious criticism of this absurd alliance between the United States and Saudi Arabia. It's super important, obviously, to understand the history of Wahhabism and the context in which we have a situation inextricably where the United States and Saudi Arabia do have shared geopolitical interest in the Middle East. Of course, we've talked about stability vis-a-vis oil prices, and of course, as related to generally the policies of U.S. intervention in the Middle East. But we covered this insane story where Saudi Arabia was going to be heading a key UN human rights panel. I mean, it is just utterly and totally absurd. I'm glad Kyle is all over this, and we're going to continue covering it as well.